You're listening to the Survivor Sweat Podcast with Mike Buckmiller and Russell Rosenblum. If you're looking for strategy articles and just about everything Survivor, head to survivorsweat.com. Now, let's get to it.
All right, welcome to Survivor Sweat Pod number 7. Russ, are you there?
I am here this time.
Wonderful, wonderful. As you can see, we are remote again this week. We hope to be back in the studio next week, but as you know, the show must go on. I know we survived. Hopefully you out there in the crowd or you out there watching have survived as well.
They most likely survived. Not too many people didn't survive. Just a few went down.
This is true. For those of you that are new to the pod, we are last year's co-champions of this wonderful, prestigious contest. Our last year's entry was Jed, but Jed is dead. But we do have entries under another name. Not many, but we do have a few chips, and we still have the chair.
Chip in a chair, pretty much.
Yes. My name is Mike Buckmiller, and this is Russell Rosenblum, my partner in crime. And we want to start by recapping last week. And as you mentioned, not many went down. 46 hit the skids. So only 2.5% of the pool went down this week. That left us with 1,789 entries out of the 9,267 that entered. So 80.69% of the pool has been eliminated through week 6, including the one no pick. Last year, through 6 weeks, there was only 6.2% of the pool that survived. So we're approximately 13% off the pace. I know we spoke about that in the past. This has only went on for a few years. So we're trying to figure out if this is unique, similar. We're in the ballpark.
Well, it's the same thing. It's going to happen. It's just whether some of the big upsets are not going to happen every week. Do they happen in weeks 1, 2, 3? Do they happen in weeks 9, 10, 11? You just don't know where they're going to come. We almost had a pretty decent sized upset this past Sunday night. And if we did, I think that puts us right back in last year's pace. We're pretty close.
If the old Buffalo Bills go down, they would have clipped 20%. So we would have been right there, no question. How agonizing was that game? Watching that game, for crying out loud.
I mean, I guess it's more agonizing if you had Buffalo, which we did not. But it's still going to be pretty agonizing when you're rooting for Buffalo to lose. But to say something, that is, again, I know I've said this week to week and not just to keep touting the contest. That's where even if you only had one entry and it was not on Buffalo, why this is the most exciting piece of sports betting you can do. You're always rooting for your team to win, obviously, but there are going to be some other teams that, maybe you don't care that much if the Bears or Vikings lose. They've got one entry. I know every entry matters, but if you don't have the Rams, Dolphins, or Bills, those are 3 games you're rooting pretty hard on.
Absolutely. I looked up some of the entries, and I believe there's 10 left that had all 10 entries remaining, 10 different contestants, and 3 laid the wood. They had put all 10 on Buffalo. So, I can only imagine that feeling on the last play of the game. And then, the ref swallows the whistle there. The guy just absolutely got mugged. Incredible.
Yeah, no, it was just awful. You can't expect to see a better spot than that at the end of the game against a pretty sizable favorite.
Yeah, there was some mismanagement of the clock at the end of the first half where they could have walked away with 3. The Giants could have walked away with 3. And then down to the wire there, me and you have talked, privately about how to defend the goal line at the end of the game there. If I'm coaching, I'm instructing my players.
PI every play. If you're on defense, PI every play.
Yeah.
Keep sticking them back at the 1. Keep letting them try. Maybe one time they don't call a PI and then you win the game. But I'm not going to let them catch the ball. How
many times you hear a referee say, he doesn't want to, be the one that determines the game. So, unless it's egregious to the umpteenth degree. Like, they just swallow the whistle more times.
Well, to their credit, look what to the Bills' credit, look what actually happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Grabbed them, they didn't blow the whistle, and that was the end.
Correct. There's a PI right before it. So, I mean, like, how many times are they going to continue to call that? And then eventually, they're just going to let them play.
You could get lucky too. You could be planning on the PI and the play and intending on the PI, and the ball gets tipped, and now there's no PI.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there are a lot of ways to win that way. Playing too conservatively is not one of them. And so I give the Bills defensive coordinator or whoever it was that sent that out, or maybe it's dumb luck, but I give them some credit. Still just unfortunate for us. Going back to us, where we ended up was not my favorite place. I know that. I think I gave you a hard time in the stream, although I should have probably tagged you to make it clear I was giving you the hard time. So, my network, as I think I said, my network goes down for a day, and suddenly, Mike ends up taking the 2 chalk favorites here. No, we discussed all the picks as always, and we landed on them with a consensus. But it was just unfortunate that where we ended up happened to be the 2 most popular picks of the week. As you've heard in the pod, week after week after week, we're always trying to avoid the teams that everybody else has taken, because you're trying to make up ground, not just win and have another week. And that ended up a little unfortunate for us, particularly because the next 2 teams down our list that we were going to take did both win.
Yeah.
So we could have taken Vegas or Jacksonville, who we didn't.
Yeah, our analysis was off a bit, but we'll get to that in a moment about how we got there. But we've mentioned before, sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong, but we're willing to take that stand and push the button where needed, where we thought we needed to be. But yeah, so we finally weren't on a Thursday night game.
Good start.
Because we had no KC left, and no, we're not taking any more Broncos. That's for sure. But 382 contestants took KC, 20.8%. Definitely more than we anticipated. So they walked into the weekend knowing that they survived. Yep. So, they were sweating that Buffalo game as well. So, yeah, Thursday's been a place that we've landed the last couple of weeks. I was happy that it wasn't a place we were going to be. I just don't like the data on that short time frame. So we moved on. Speaking of this Thursday, and don't want to jump ahead, but I'm anticipating not being on that game too. It's a very close contest this week. And
not particularly likely. I don't think you're going to get a lot of people on that game.
Yeah, exactly. I do want to revert back regarding the 1 no pick, because we've said in the past the advantages of using a proxy. And so hopefully that individual is okay. I did hear on Vissen, Jeff Benson said something to the effect that, people enter this contest. Maybe it's the first year they're in. Maybe they enter them every Friday. They don't even know. And then all of a sudden, they just don't really know the actual deadline time. Right. And they just assume it's prior to kickoff. Maybe it's a Thursday, one of those things where, you can just get it in prior to kickoff. But again, the benefits of having a proxy service. So if you go over to survivorsweat.com, there are several listed there. I'm assuming you can sign up with them at any time in the contest. Obviously, it's an advantage if you have it before. They will reach out to you. They will knock on your door if need be, and hopefully help you get your pick in. And in some cases, you can get your pick in prior, but not really push the button. You have that grace period.
You push the button, but they haven't pushed the button. You can change your pick, which you cannot do with Circa. Again, once you put your pick in Circa, if you put that thing in, today, it's locked. Can't change it.
That is correct. So, yeah, absolutely. So looking at some of the picks, the rundowns, I'm super surprised the Rams show up with 42.6% here. I mean, I was just baffled by that. I thought they would be third at best. And, Miami shows up with 440. Chiefs show up with, the 84, 4.6. These are teams that Miami and the Chiefs that possibly are saves for the special week of Turkey Day and the Christmas play. But I anticipated a lot more on Buffalo. So the 20% was super surprising for me. Ravens, Jaguars. I thought there might be a little bit more Jags. And then, Eagles show up with 25, Niners with 13. The Niners doesn't really surprise me because it was similar to what our pick was a week back, kind of a contrarian pick where we felt like it was plus EV. And here's, Cleveland with the backup quarterback again in a bad spot. And it just shows you, man, week to week, this league, I'm telling you.
And that's the thing, when everybody goes, this team can't win. And I grant you, Buffalo did in fact win. But as I said at the time, I could not construct a situation where Buffalo could lose that game. And yet there they were. And as I've said, would you bet your house and lay 9-1? Probably not. So, no. It can happen. There's never a spot in the NFL where a team really can't win.
Yeah, you can't be warm and fuzzy thinking you're not going to have a roof at the end of the game.
Correct. Couple of turnovers, play good defense for a game, keep it a low scoring game, and almost anybody's a chance to win.
Incredible. Yeah, so looking at some of the teams in the future here with the most EV, you got San Francisco a little banged up now. You got Buffalo, Josh Allen now with a shoulder bruise, something about not being able to push the ball down the field. KC, Dallas, Miami, Eagles, all the usual suspects, but
it's the obvious teams.
Yeah, but how about Detroit now?
Yep. You now add them to the list. I would argue you add them to the list. And right now, I guess sort of Cincinnati's on the list, but we'll wait and see. And Cleveland's another sort of.
Exactly. Everybody's waiting for them to turn it on. And they were in a dogfight last week with Seattle, who's a solid team, of course, but I anticipated a little cleaner game over there for them, but time will tell with them. I think coming out of the bye, they might be a little stronger. But who knows? But
it looks like they're going to be pretty popular this week, but I don't want to jump ahead.
This is correct. So when everything locked at 4:00 on the Survivor Sweat X handle, we popped on there. We gave it some of our reasoning as to where we landed. We anticipated, not to be redundant here, but just more teams on Buffalo and more picks, higher percentage on Buffalo and Miami. We thought it could command 55+%. We were wrong. When the picks were all revealed, lo and behold, we're on the chalk, exactly where we don't want to be.
Right. And there's sometimes you'd have no choice. You'd really have almost no other options. That really wasn't the case for us this week. And so, burning the Rams when they end up being the chalk is annoying. Burning the Dolphins when they end up being the chalk, I don't want to say it's an unmitigated disaster, but it's bad. I don't feel like we made anything. We lost 2% of the field, but we lost Miami as a pick.
Yeah, it was really bad when they were down 14-0.
Pretty bad. That was pretty bad.
I literally was shaking my head, just going, are we really going to go down with the chalk? Us, of all people, are going to get clipped here against Carolina. But, that was short-lived. Dolphins got it in gear. But we were on the Dolphins. We thought maybe they get, 25%.
Well, they did. They sat there at 24%. It's just the Rams had so many picks on them.
Yeah. But, we still thought they had a high win rate of 88%, carried one of the highest EV. So, we were comfortable there, so be it 24%. But the Rams were the ones, that was the killer. We just thought it had a smaller percentage, good spot at home, not a lot of future value. And who knows, maybe people are listening to our pod and took some advice.
Who knows? It's possible. Maybe we should be more cryptic.
Yes, I think we should be.
Everyone should take Denver this week. There you go.
Well, if we're sending cryptic vibes, we're not taking any more Broncos.
That's probably true. It's very unlikely. I don't need to look at the schedule to know that.
Yes, very, very unlikely. So that's where we landed. We don't have many chips left, so we only had a few teams to take.
Well, right now it's fairly obvious. We'll just say it's 2.
Yeah, we got 2.
Right. So it's 2.
2. One more than we had last year at this time.
I prefer to say twice as many, but sure.
Gosh. Yes, twice as many. It does sound much.
That sounds better. We could have 20. Who knows? Yeah. Twice as many as last year at this time.
Yeah, exactly. So I popped on to survivoratlas.com, looked at the leaderboard, noticed our co-champion last year, Browna.
Yeah.
With his week 6 picks, he had 3 remaining. He was sweating the Buffalo game.
Mm-hmm.
2 Buffalo, 1 Miami. They both survive. So, in fact, both defending champs are still alive for the improbable repeat.
It's true. And with what percentage of the field already gone too?
Yeah,
that's 80 or whatever it is.
Yep. I did hear through the Twitter streets that there is a defending champion, not from last year, but there is a defending champion that has all 10 entries left.
Wow.
Trying to remember who this gentleman's name was.
You could check it later. There aren't that many that have 10 left, so it should be easy to find.
Exactly. So, yeah, if you go on to survivoratlas.com, and I'm only plugging it is because I really like to troll the site. It has some good insight to where the picks land, who has what. It's a very user-friendly site. Have no affiliation whatsoever with this site. I did go on and tout them a little bit on Twitter and just say, you know, I enjoy your site. It's fantastic. So I love this community. I like all the people that are involved in it. We get some good feedback. It's just, like I said, it's the best football contest. I'm obviously biased, but I think it's the best football contest in the world. And man, it gives you quite the survivor sweat, as it did last week with Buffalo. So if you go on there, you can find some good information along with our X handle as well. We are on there trolling it. I respond to a lot of people that reach out. I love to connect with the community. It's fantastic.
So what do we got?
Well, I think we're going to take a quick break before we look up or look into next week's plays. So let's take a quick break.
All right, for week 7, we're going to take after these messages.
Oh, what a tease. What a tease.
Especially since they know I'm still not going to answer. Off we go. Be back in a minute.
Yep.
Time for a message from our sponsor. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back with the Survivor Sweat Podcast.
If you live out of state but want to enter any of the biggest football handicapping contests in Las Vegas, you've come to the right place. Football Proxy is the most professional proxy service in Las Vegas and can serve as your trusted proxy to enter your picks each week for the Super Contest, Circa Sports Millions, or Circa Survivor contests. What makes Football Proxy different from other proxies? Well, like other proxies, we have late selection deadlines and an easy-to-use web portal to submit your picks each week. But, unlike other proxies, we allow our customers to change their picks anytime before the pick deadline, which is crucial when gathering last-minute information. Ask another proxy if they allow you to make changes to your picks and see their reaction. It's what makes us the top-rated proxy service in Las Vegas. To get started, fill out the contact form and a representative will contact you to answer any questions and schedule an appointment. Then book your trip to Las Vegas and meet us at the designated casino to get signed up. Once the season starts, sweat the action all season long with your picks. Schedule an appointment today and compete against the world's best for your chance at millions.
All right, we're back for segment number 2, the look ahead for week 7 in Circa Survivor contest here. So I'll run down some of the top plays. I don't know if they're the top plays, but the favorite teams this week. You got the Buffalo Bills -8 at the New England Patriots. Man, what a team that is just reeling right now. That's a tough one. I never thought I would live to see the day that Bill Belichick was really struggling this bad. You know, you think you just figure it out.
Yeah, and put it this way, we like to bet on games too. We're in Vegas, so no problems there. And as a general rule over the last 10 years or so, you hate betting against Belichick. Always hate it. Yeah. Now you're really indifferent. We're happy to do it.
Yeah, you might not like the Patriots. You might not like Belichick, but it's really tough to lay those hard-earned dollars against Bill Belichick. The guy kind of seems to always find a way. Next up is the Seattle Seahawks that is -7.5 versus the Cardinals. Then you got the Niners. We're a little dinged up, and they're heading to Minnesota, the Monday night contest. They're -7. The Kansas City Chiefs versus the Chargers, -5.5. And then you got a couple plays that are -3. I mean, you got the Rams -3 versus the Steelers coming off a bye. That's never fun. Tangle.
No, as a general rule in the NFL, I remember we had a few games last year that we were kind of forced into that we had to take that were -2.5s. But as a general rule in this thing, it doesn't seem like a lot, but a 3.5-point favorite in the NFL is pretty significant. You know, it's more than the field goal. It's sort of like a real win. Whereas a 1.5-point favorite it's close to pick'em game. You know, it's really close. There's a huge difference in those 2 points, right? So you really want to try to get at least 3 points when you can, like be on a team that has at least 3, but sometimes you can't. And, you know, you look this week and jumping in there to the popularity numbers, the early looks, again, I say this all the time, this is not specific to Circa. This is pool wide amongst, you know, tens of thousands of pools around the country, a lot of which are $0 pools. You just don't know. But initial looks look like Seattle's going to be insanely popular. It could have more than half the field on them. Buffalo is next, and then nobody else really is. Like the early numbers show Seattle at 56%, Buffalo at 16%, and then the next one down the list is, you know, the Rams at 5%, San Francisco at 4%, Cleveland at 4%, 3-3. Like that's it. It's those two teams that could be upwards of 70% of the pool this week.
Yeah.
And yet, which one do you want to take that's not on that list? I mean, I'm not saying we will or we won't, not sure yet, but do you really want to be taking, you know, Tampa Bay versus Atlanta? You know, there's your 2.5-point line. Green Bay at Denver. These are not great spots.
Yeah. You know, I've spoken to people that are in this contest and enjoy the Survivor contest in general, not just the Circa one, but as a rule of thumb, they try not to get involved with teams in the division. And so here you are, maybe the 2 highest concentrated picks here. You got Buffalo on the road, you know, and now you got Seattle and Cardinals. Now they seem like, you know, free squares, like you're just going to push through, but these are divisional opponents. And now you're talking 50+%, 55% on the Seahawks here, you know, because, you know, they have little future value. So I can see why people are attracted to this team, you know, and here you got Buffalo. So maybe the ones that saved them last week, maybe now they pivot and they saved them for this week against the Pats. You know, the Niners could be a play. We know that's obviously a team that we're saving for down the road, or teams are saving for down the road. Now they're banged up. McCaffrey, you won't know till game time, maybe at all. You know, they have a receiver out, of course. And, you know, Minnesota, although they're losing games, they're losing close games. They're not
competitive all the time.
They're not a bad football team. And to travel and Monday night contest, you know, back-to-back road for the Niners here, you know, you're not feeling warm and fuzzy there. And then you got the Chiefs, another divisional opponent, versus the Chargers, who just keep losing these close contests.
And that's an interesting one because it surprises me a little bit that, remember, this is not specific to Circa, right? So it surprises me a little bit that I'm looking at Kansas City's expected popularity is like 3%. Like they don't expect a lot of people on Kansas City. You know, it's probably a good spot to take them if you have them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And
because anytime you take them, they're usually going to have, you know, such a huge percentage of the field on them. This is going to be one of the rare times you can probably take them, you know, but people want to take them when they're 12-point favorites, not when they're 5-point favorites.
Sure. No, of course. You know, and they're winning, you know, differently. They're not putting up the high number, the points. They got a defense over there and they're playing more well-rounded football. So, you know, the Chiefs look like they're a pretty good football team. And, you know, like, again, the Chargers keep losing these close games. I just don't know how long that coach is going to hang on there, you know, and, you know,
hard to say, you know, although I look at Buffalo, that's a weird spot too, because week to week, anything can change, but I wouldn't have expected the Giants to, you know, sort of manhandle the Bills a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, the Giants, like we talk about them not putting points on at the end of the first half. They also settled for field goals a couple of other occasions.
Sure.
You know, if they get in the end zone one of those times, it could change the whole game flow, but it also could cause them to win the game. So it's interesting. And Arizona didn't look good last week against the Rams, but that's the first week I think they've really looked just not like bad.
Yeah.
Everyone thought they would be terrible, and they've been in games, even though they've been losing most of them, other than Dallas, the one week we took Dallas. It's like, that's when Arizona showed up. But for the most part, I don't I don't think it's as much a free square as everybody else does. Do I think Seattle probably wins? Sure. I mean, the market odds are 77%. Market's probably right. But that means, roughly a quarter of the time, they're going to lose.
Yeah.
And if you're really going to have, and it's funny because if these numbers are accurate and they're showing 56% nationwide, in Circa it could be higher because the other teams that kind of show popularity here are Buffalo, kind of San Francisco, the Rams. San Francisco is going to get saved a little bit. I don't know. It's possible that number breaks 6. It's hard for me to believe any one team's going to get 60% in Circa, but this could be a rare instance.
I mean, obviously, this contest has not been around for long, but I can't recall a 60% of the pool on a team.
No, the only time you could say that, and I know this isn't what you mean, I'm being very semantic. If you have 3 teams left, right, and 2 guys take 1 team, you have 66, but that's not what we're talking about. With any significant number of entries left, it's almost impossible. Yes. I'll be very curious to see what happens because, we could end up on Seattle. We had them in 1 entry, but I don't know if we're going to take them or not. If no matter how much I may hate our other pick, if we really think Seattle's going to hit 60%, I'm not taking them. Like it'll be a bloodbath for us. We'll take some crappy team down the list and probably be pissed when they bust us. But those are the spots you need to try to pick up equity in this contest. Like that's exactly what you're looking for the whole field to be on some team. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. If you end up with like 40% on Seattle, it'll show, in my opinion, there are more sharps in this pool. And if you see numbers like 60, it'll be there really aren't as many sharps as I might have thought. But I do think between Seattle and Buffalo, they're going to take up a lot of the oxygen here because you really do go down the list. And I mean, none of the other spots are particularly great. I mean, the Rams versus Pittsburgh, that's, reasonable. But again, you're talking 3-point spreads. They're thin spots. And
you're thinking the individuals that have, that do have the Chiefs that have yet to burn them, because there's been a lot that have burned them to get here, are saving them. They're assuming, correct. So it'll be interesting to see.
But I mean, the ones you should be, looking at here are Buffalo, Kansas City, believe it or not, Vegas, Baltimore, San Francisco, Rams, Cleveland. I mean, these are kind of the spots you've got. And if you're going to start ruling out, teams like Seattle and Buffalo, it just gets thinner and thinner. Washington at the Giants could be a reasonable shot if you still have Washington left for somebody. They're not very popular. The spread's only 2%, but it looks like less than 1% of the field will be on them. So it's not an unreasonable spot to look at.
Don't even talk to me about Riverboat Ron.
But that's the thing. If you sit there and you have Kansas City left and you have Seattle left, you're really going to take Washington? Maybe you should, but that doesn't mean you will. Like it's easy, and we've said this before, it's easy to say all of this stuff. It's hard to pull the trigger. Like if we have an entry that can take Seattle and we really believe 60% are going to be on Seattle, are we going to end up taking like Atlanta? I'm not saying Atlanta's the next team up because I'm not going to say which one the next team up is, but maybe you're supposed to. Like Atlanta may have a lot more equity than Seattle in that spot, but man, that's a tough one to pull the trigger on, even if you know it's the right thing to do.
Oh my God. To your point, to push that button on that team when you have a higher win rate, it's just, it's sick. It's absolutely sick to make.
Well, this is again for people that play poker out there, and a lot of the Survivor players I find do. Yeah, people say whatever they want, then they sit down in the main event of the World Series of Poker, and if it's the first time they've played, they can get run over by the Phil Ivies of the world.
Yeah,
because if you don't have aces, you're just going to fold to the huge raise. You'll get guys that will be happy folding kings, even if the other guy showed them ace kings. They don't want to go out those few times that ace may spike, right? And it's a tough spot. You got guys that could be getting 4-1 that'll fold, flush draws in the flop. They're just afraid to bust.
I don't know if I know anybody that's folded kings in the main on day one.
On day one, yeah, I'll get back to you on that. Yeah.
Yes. Chicken.
I mean, the flip side of that, by the way, not to get distracted with poker, I was in a tournament at the World Series one year. It was the Monster Stack. And the guy's opening to 10 big blinds every time. He opens the 10 big blinds. I have to pick up kings. I re-raise to 35 big blinds. We each have maybe 250 blinds very early in the tournament. And he literally just moves all in for 250 blinds.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, I've got 2 kings. I've been waiting for this spot forever. I'm like, is he really just trying to move me off my hand? Normally I would snap call, but John Juwanda taught me years ago, even if your decision's just automatic, what's the downside in thinking? The guy's already moved in, just take your time. So I start thinking for a few seconds. I mean, I'm sure I'm calling, like King's here, right? And I'm just thinking for a few seconds. And the guy's about 60 and he says to me, can I show him my hand? He says to the dealer. Dealer says, no. I go, well, of course he can. He goes, well, I mean, he can, but then like he'll get a penalty. I go, might be worth it to him. Like that's not for you to decide, right? So he goes, look, I can't show you my hand, but I'm telling you, like, I have you beat. I'm like, you don't know how big my hand is? He goes, it really doesn't matter. You would have snap called if you had the same hand. Like, I have you beat. There's nothing, I promise I have you beat. I flew here from Ohio. I had $1,500. This is the only event I'm playing. I'm not going to go broke, right, on, in the first 2 hours. Like, I've flown all the way here. It's just not worth it to me. Like, I've got the only hand that beats you, probably, right? And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And after about a minute and a half, I fold the kings and he shows me the 2 aces, right? So, I mean, there's the flip side, right? He's petrified of going broke too, even with the best possible hand. So, he's never going to win the tournament that way, but he is going to make it out of level 1.
Just know that next year during the series, you're going to get jammed on quite a bit, especially in the first 2 hours.
That's fine. If I have kings, I'm calling every time now. It's perfect. I'm folding the kings. Just keep jamming.
Yes.
So anyway,
out there, yes, I did fold kings in day 1 of the main, and I thought I was right, but you'll never know.
Sure, unless he shows them to you.
Moving on from the WSOP, let's go to the next main event, which is the Circa Survivor contest, which I believe is going to be bigger than the main event someday. Someday, we'll see.
You're getting the number of entries. You're right there. You're almost there, but total dollars.
The prize pool for sure.
You got a long way to go for total dollars.
We do have a long way to go. But I can see sometime in the near future, this thing getting 15, 20 million for first place.
It could be. Absolutely could be, because the difference here is in the World Series of Poker, you have to know how to play poker. And if you don't, you might be intimidated sitting at the table. Sure. Here, anybody could just pick a team.
Yeah.
Like my wife could pick a team. She doesn't even have to understand what's going on. She could just pick by jersey color or something. It's whatever.
I think if she would have picked for us at the beginning,
we'd have more entries.
I think we would have more entries.
I'm pretty confident that's true. Blind Squirrel would have more entries.
Little rough. All right, let's moving right along here. So yeah, it's going to be a tough week. And it'll be interested to see how many are on Seahawks, where are the Bills, those type of things. So we're going to continue to analyze and figure out where we're going to be. But yeah, just looking ahead, and as we always do, week 8, the Bills are there again, Dallas, Miami, Eagles, Ravens.
And we've said this, I'm going to say it again. Exactly. You're always going to, I don't know what week I've got to click where you don't see at least 2 or 3 of like, Miami, Buffalo, Kansas City, San Francisco, Dallas, like all these teams right at the top of the list. They're always going to be there because they're really the only credible teams in the NFL. Everybody else, when you win with Cleveland, New Orleans, even Baltimore, the Raiders, Indianapolis, Chargers, I'm looking at like week 9 just randomly. If you win with one of those teams, you feel like you're lucky. Yeah. You never feel like they're a free square. Like, I don't care who Cleveland's playing. You can tell me they're playing Arizona. It's not a free square. Like, I never feel the Raiders. You ever feel like they're a free square?
No. And great winning with Baltimore. I can't seem to do it.
Right, exactly. And so it's tough. I mean, so you're always going to see those other teams right at the top of the list. And just like any other week, you're going to see them in week 8. The initial big favorites are the teams over 75% likely to win as of right now are Miami, Buffalo, Baltimore, Chargers, Kansas City, Detroit. And then 72 is San Francisco, basically 70s Dallas, Philadelphia. Like that's it. There's your list. And, there you go again. Right. It's just the same group of teams that are going to be up there. And as you said a couple of weeks ago, a buddy that keep wanting to take, oh no, this is a good spot for Kansas City. This is a good spot for San Francisco. It's a good spot for Philly. You're like, yeah, that's great. Now, who are you going to take in week 10, 11, 12, every other week? Right.
Your entry is worth dust at this point.
Correct.
I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible.
Speaking of worth dust, didn't somebody jump out there and sell one of these things?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So on survivorsweat.com on the marketplace, somebody posted an entry. The implied odds for an entry at this point is 5,179.
Implied value, right? Yeah.
The implied value.
Right.
Thank you.
Yep.
But somebody posted one for 6K, and within less than 20 minutes, it got snatched up, like bang, quick. And as it turns out, another one popped up this morning.
Oh, you're kidding.
No, there's another one up. So
I should go take a look
snatched
myself.
up. Yeah. I mean, you said we're buyers, not sellers.
I did. Theoretically, we're buyers, not sellers.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not a seller.
So one popped up. Again, the implied market value is 5,179, posted for 6K, got snatched up in 20 minutes. One popped up this morning. Heck, it may be gone by the time we finish the pod. Who knows? But it leads me in a roundabout, because we were asked a question on the Survivor Sweat discussion board, and it's from Tony SCV. Is his handle. Hi, Mike and Russ. How does the marketplace work in terms of facilitating ticket transfers from one party to another? I thought the Circa Survivor entries were not transferable.
So that's a tricky question. They're not transferable in the normal sense of the word. So if person A owns an entry and they sell it to person B, in theory, person A is going to have to show up at the cage when they won. Right. So if they have no interest to show up at the cage anymore, you kind of have a problem. So what I understand that Survivor Sweat is doing is that person A is going to continue to own a piece of that entry. I think they're 1%. So I think what they're doing is you're basically creating a partner that owns 99% of your entry.
Gotcha.
Right. And so in this instance, whoever's buying it, they're not even buying 100%, they're buying 99%. So technically, when you're looking at the value of whatever you said, it was 5,250 or something, it's really 99% of that, right? Because you don't get 100% of the entry. Now, you might say, well, is this person going to show up for 1%? Now, well, if you win almost $10 million, right, the guy's still showing up for about 100 grand. I think he shows up.
Sure.
The guy sold his entry for 6 grand. He shows up for 100 grand. Now, if at the end of the day, there's some massive chop and your entire thing is worth $100,000, you got to hope this guy shows up for 1,000, you're going to have a problem. Now, that said, one of the advantages of using Survivor Sweat, if you do this on your own, you got to figure out how to draft contracts, make sure there's an agreement, make sure there's legal responsibility for the person to come even outside of Circa. With Survivor Sweat, my understanding is they're putting together all the contracts for you. So they've got boilerplates. So you don't have to, I think they charge a small fee for transfer, but the reality is if you had to pay a lawyer to draw a contract, it's going to cost you more than the fee they're charging you. It's well worth it just for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, they will facilitate the legal binding contract and make sure that you are protected for that. It's not just word of mouth. You purchase that, they have your back. They will make sure that it's all done correctly, and so that you're safe and secure with your entry. And by the way, the buyer now has full access and rights over that entry and will make the picks.
For sure. Or their proxy.
You're not teaming up with anybody else. Once you purchase that, it is your pick moving forward.
Well, one other thing, I happen to be aware of this from Circa's perspective, not something they outright advertise, but it is something that's the right thing to do, morally, ethically, and probably legally as well. Because they didn't ask this follow-up question, but it would be coming. So you do this, and the entry is in person A's name, person B owns 99%, you show up at the cage. Who are they paying and what are the taxes, right?
Correct.
And so I can tell you from having spoken to Circa and having some experience with them, you're going to show them, you're going to tell them, you both are going to tell them, I own 1%, they own 99%. Circa at that point is incredibly likely to pay the person that owns 99% of the money. You're going to say how much money goes to each person. They're going to give the money to the correct people and give the correct people the correct tax forms. Another reason you're better off using Survivor Sweat or somebody else, it can be an unmitigated disaster, even if you trust the people, because person one, if they just get paid, Circa is going to withhold money. They're going to withhold taxes. Then you're going to give all the money that 99% to person two. But you don't even have 99% because they withheld the taxes, but they've not withheld them for the benefit of person two. So he's going to end up owing money. You might get a refund. You might not get a refund. It would be a mess. You really need the actual gambling establishment to issue the correct 1099s for you.
Right.
I think the 1099-Gs, if I remember right, they have to issue the right 1099-Gs or it can create a tax mess. So you want to make sure that happens to anybody that has a deal, or even if you don't have a deal, even if you just have partners, there are 2 of you, 3 of you, 10 of you, and you and your partners win, you want to make sure you go into Circa and actually have them issue correctly, or it can really create a mess.
Yes, absolutely. And we can speak from this firsthand. We did this last year.
Yep.
And as we mentioned on prior pods, we also have partners as well. And so this was all mitigated and handled very smoothly by Circa. And it was not an issue at all. It's all on the up and up. And it, as you mentioned, it's actually a very easy process.
It is. It's a pain. Honestly, it's a pain in the ass for them.
Sure.
You know, they think there's one person on this one team. The next thing you know, they have to issue, 5 tax forms, and it's just more work. But they do that, and that's the right thing to do. I think they're probably supposed to be doing that, but that doesn't mean every establishment would do that. Some might just turn a blind eye because it's easier.
Sure. Well, if you're interested in that entry, pop on to survivorsweat.com. I know we're going to pop on it and take a look at it.
Certainly going to take a look. I got to see what teams they've used and then see if it makes sense for us right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And not just for the marketplace, but all things Survivor Sweat. There's great articles, access to the pod, a lot of different things, everything that encompasses the Circa Survivor contest. It's a one-stop shop.
And weren't you going to have an autographed copy of the 2 kings you mucked there that you were going to auction off for charity?
Sure. Incredible.
Or maybe your signed Broncos jersey.
Oh, yes. Unreal. Well, that's it for pod number 7. I'm really looking forward to this week. And again, I hope we survive. I hope you survive. Maybe. And we'll see where everybody lands next week. Hopefully
we shall.
Yeah, hopefully back into the nice little studio, and maybe we can wear our jackets again. I miss wearing those jackets.
It's funny, if you ask me the over-under of number of teams we lose this week as a percentage, I'm going to give you some weird, it's a weird number, but I probably give you like 9 or 10%. Because the reason is, in order to really be higher, it's going to be Seattle losing, maybe Buffalo losing. Otherwise, you're going to need like 4 different teams to lose before you get to 10%, right? Yeah. So when it's more than 10%, it could be 60%, it could be 70%.
Yep.
But most of the time, it's probably under 10%.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to see how it goes any given week in the NFL. If you want to go on the discussion board on survivorsweat.com or on the X handle and ask us a question, maybe we'll answer it for you next week here on the pod. But that is it for us this week, and look forward to seeing you next week, and hopefully we're survived as well. So until next week.
Till next week.
Yep. Get your picks in.
Looking for Survivor strategy articles? Did you lose your last entry on a Survivor contest and wish you could rebuy? Check out our marketplace and you may find what you need. Head over to survivorsweat.com for all things Survivor. And we'll see you next week for the next Survivor Sweat podcast.